What's going on YouTube? This is Dan back with another Pokemon deck profile for you. This one is going to be on Buzzwole and Lycanroc GX. So far, one of my favorites to play in Standard is it's pretty cheap to make and it hits hard. So we're going to go ahead and start this out for you. First off, we run 4 copies of Buzzwole GX. Buzzwole GX has the attack Jet Punch. Jet Punch does 30 to the active and 30 onto the bench. So what's cool about this guy is you can pretty much start out with him. You're attacking, if you start out second, you can start hitting with him. Attach Strong Energy, you're hitting for 50. If you're going against GX and you have a Choice Band, you're going to be hitting for 80 damage. If you do a Kukui that turn, you can hit 100 first turn. You can just see how to mash everything together and try to hit those one-shots. So he's our main attacker. We run 4 copies of Buzzwole. And also, early game, early to mid-game, you can always do Knuckle Impact for 160. Do that with a Strong Energy and Choice Band. You can hit Knockout on Glisspod, no problem. Without any of that, you can hit it on Zoroark for no problem whatsoever. And also we have Absorption GX, which is going to be one of our GX moves that we could do if we wanted to. Pretty much we're just going to shoot for Dangerous Rogue, but if you had to, Absorption is just a really good one to go for. Early in the game you can hit, 240? So it's not too bad. Alright, so there's 4 copies of Buzzwole. Next up we run 3 copies of Rockruff. I don't have the regular promo type. This one's pretty good, but worst comes to worst, you just gotta hit heads if you're going against like Hoopa or something of that nature. We do have 1 counter for Hoopa, but that's alright. So we just use him just for our base evolution. We run 3 Rockruff. And then we run 2 copies of Lycanroc GX. Lycanroc, he helps out with bringing up easy things to kill. So if we're going against Zoroark, that's one of our most favorable matchups, I'd think. You can just bring up one of their guys. Bring up one Zoroark, get a knockout, hit 30 on one on the bench. Set up for next turn. You can Bloodthirsty Eyes another one up and just get 2 to 3 prizes in 2 turns flat. As long as they're not doing too well, even if that, we can still be swinging pretty hard. So his first attack is Claw Slash, doing 110. We can always boost that damage. And his GX attack, which is really helpful if we're going against Glisspod, is Dangerous Rogue GX. So the more they have on their bench does 50 for each. So if they have 5 on their bench, that's 250 damage. Knock out Metagross, get 1 shot on that. Glisspod, anything of that nature. Swing pretty easy with that guy. So we run 2 copies of Lycanroc. Next up, we run 2 copies of Remoraid. We don't run too many supporters in this deck. A lot of time our draw support's just off Octillery in this game. But he works really good. I've been playing against top tier decks lately, and I'm still hitting just fine. This deck's super fun to play against those. Especially when you win. Which is not too hard to do. Also, we use his first attack to get rid of stadium cards, say if there's a Parallel City out and we're stuck. We start out with Remoraid. Typically, 9 out of 10 times we're going to start with Buzzwole and Energy. That's really good, along with the Brooklet Hills, so we can get another basic down. So, all in all, not too bad. And these guys, they're fine as is. We just run 2 copies of him. And we also run 2 Octillery. Octillery we're using for the ability Abyssal Hand. Allows us to draw until we have 5 cards in hand. So if you have 2 on the bench, you can just cycle through your hand pretty easy. Just run through it and pick it up again. If your opponent ends you down to a low hand size, no problem. You just Abyssal Hand right back to it. So we run 2 copies of Octillery. Next we run a 1 copy of Regirock EX. He has the ability Regipower, so it adds an extra 10 damage to all of our fighting Pokemon's attacks. So, Jet Punch for 1 basic energy is hitting for 40. 40 can be 80 against something. hit an easier knockout, do Kukui, just it helps with the math a lot. You could put 2 in here, but I don't want to run into starting out with him not having a float stone or a way to retreat. We do have Guzma, but I think that would be a waste of Guzma just to bring him out of the active. But just a 1 of works for me. You don't start out with him maybe once in every, 10 games. Nothing too bad though. So I run 1 copy of him. Next up, one of my techs that I like putting in here is a Mew EX. This helps with the mirror matchup. Hit 2 times, whatever you're going against. You can either do Jet Punch, or you can copy Bloodthirsty Eyes. You can copy anybody's attack on the field. You can use it as long as you have the necessary energy. So if you're doing the mirror matchup, if someone has like Watch and Learn with Sudowoodo, you can use that. He just helps out in the mirror, or pretty much anything of that nature. You need it. So we only run 1 Mew EX, and that's all you need on there. Last up, we have Sudowoodo. We use him for his Watch and Learn attack. So if your opponent does a Riotous Beating, or your opponent does uses Glisspot, or just anything that probably one-shot you, you can use that attack with this guy here. And also, if you're stuck against Hoopa or something of that nature, and they do a Hyperspace Punch, or whatever they call that, you can copy that and go for a knockout. So we run 1 Sudowoodo. Next up, we're on to our supporters. We run a lot of 2-ofs in here, so realistically it's pretty budget friendly, and it works really well. So we're going to start out with 2 copies of N. Just really easy, shuffling hand to your deck. Both players draw equal to the amount of prizes that they have, so early game, really good. Late game, you can put your opponent at disadvantage, and sometimes you want to do that to yourself. It helps with Octillery, at least that's how I play it. Gets me out of some sticky situations. So I run 2 copies of N. Next up, we run 2 copies of Guzma. Guzma just helps us bring up something to kill, or takes us, say if we get stuck with a Regirock or an Octillery in the active, and we have them tacker on the bench, we can get one of their guys out, then we can just focus on what they have there. So we run 2 copies of Guzma. Next up, we run 2 copies of Professor Kukui. He's a little bit of draw support, but mostly we're focusing on 20 extra damage. Helps out a bunch when you're playing. And sometimes it can get you out of a spot if you're stuck on cards, which not too often. But we run 2 copies of Kukui, a very weird 1 of Professor Sycamore. Just kind of panned out that way, didn't even pay attention. I've been playing this deck for 3 weeks straight, and I haven't even noticed that I've only been using 1. The deck's pretty consistent, doesn't have any problems drawing when you need it. Pretty much every turn you're drawing at least 3 to 4 cards with Octillery. So, and you're not discarding any of your vital resources, maybe with an Ultra Ball, but nothing too bad there. So we just run 1 Professor Kukui. This card you can keep in here, or you can take out for something different. If you want to put in a Lele, you could. This would be the one I'd take out, but for what I'm using it for, I like it. Say if you start out with a Buzzwole and a Remoraid on the bench, you get into a Wally. That Wally can get you to an Octillery that turn. Helps you set up pretty easy. I don't know. I enjoy it. It scared my opponent a few times. Pretty fun. So we have 1 copy of Wally. Next up, we run 3 copies of Brooklet Hill. This is our choice stadium for this one. You can just help load up your bench. Searches out either a water or fighting basic Pokemon and puts it onto your bench. Pretty cool for this kind of deck. If you're starting out, you can get a Regirock on the bench, helping you swing for the extra damage. Get a Remoraid if you need to, Rockruff, or another Buzzwole. Whatever you're really searching for, you can go for it. So we run 3 copies of Brooklet Hill. Onto our items. We run 4 copies of Ultra Ball. Ultra Ball allows us to discard 2 cards from our hand and search our deck for a Pokemon, which, pretty standard and everything. Not too bad of a card. Just helps us search out our lycanrocs, Buzzwole, Octilleries, and Mew. Anything of that nature, we can get it. Pretty cool. So we'll run 4 of those. Next up, we run 4 copies of Max Elixir. Max Elixir is going to help us set up pretty fast. We can set up our Buzzwoles for faster damage for doing Knuckle Impact or Absorption. Or we can get a Rockruff set up, then evolve into Lycanroc, get that set up for either a Claw Slash or a Dangerous Rogue. All very attainable. Or even Sudowoodo for Watch and Learn if we have a fast response to a really fast one-shot. It's just really good. Allows us to look at the top 6 and pull out a basic energy attached to one of our bench Pokemon. Benched basics. So we run 4 copies of Max Elixir. Next up, we run 3 copies of Choice Band. Choice Band just does an extra 30 damage against your opponent's EX or GX Pokemon, so it helps with your math a little bit more. Do Jet Punch, it's not going to hit 30, it'll hit 60 if you're going against GX. 60, and then if you have Regirock, that's 70. Kukui, 90. It's not too bad. So we run 3 copies of Choice Band. Next up, we run 2 copies of Field Blower. This helps in case we're going against Garbodor or someone has Parallel City out and we can't get our Brooklet Hills up. This just helps us dump off either their tools or stadium cards. Really helpful for when Parallel City comes down. Realistically, if it does come down, we're not hurting too bad. We have outs for it. It's nothing we can't handle with this guy. So we run 2 copies of Field Blower. Next up, we run 2 copies of Enhanced Hammer. Everybody's using Special Energy one way or another. Especially with Zoroark running around. If you have Enhanced Hammer, you can just knock off their DCEs. If you do double Enhanced Hammer at one time, you can just stop their output for a while. Set them back a little bit. Or say if you're going against the mirror matchup and they start getting strong energies down, you need to get those off. Got 2 Enhanced Hammer, you're good to go. So we put 2 Enhanced Hammer in the deck. We run 1 copy of Floatstone. I would put up to 2 if I found the room, either Wally or something of that nature. But so far, 1's come in handy every time I need it. Hasn't been prized or anything during my games. And just comes in when you need it. You don't... Pretty much everything's a reasonable retreat cost, or you have Guzma for the most part. You're not too worried about Floatstone on there. So we run 1 copy of Floatstone. We also run 1 copy of Special Charge. We do run 2 copies of DCE in here, and 4 copies of Strong Energy. So we want to be sure we can cycle that. Special Charge allows us to shuffle 2 Special Energy from our discard pile back into our deck. Just helps us be able to retain all of our damage output that we need when you need it. So we run 1 copy of Special Charge, and our last item card will be Rescue Stretcher. We want to run 1, helps you out if you need another Lycanroc, or you need to shuffle in some more Pokemon so you don't deck out, or if you need that Mutech to come back in, or if you discard something early on, you can just have the access back into it. Either get it into your hand or back in your deck. So we run 1 copy of Rescue Stretcher. Next up, onto our energy. We run 2 copies of Double Colorless Energy. This is pretty much just used for Lycanroc, or we can use it with Mew. It can help us set up for like a Riotous Beating if we needed to. Copy that, or pretty much anything we need to copy, this will help us out. Or if we're going to go for a Claw Slash, we can use that. So we run 2 copies of Double Colorless Energy. Next we run 4 copies of Strong Energy. Just adds an extra 20 damage to our attack, each one of them. So typically we'll start out with a Jet Punch with one of these on there, and we'll be swinging for 50 damage there. If we have Regirock in play, we'll hit for 60. Just nice round numbers when we're swinging on there. So we run 4 copies of that. And then we run 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9 Fighting Energy to top off the deck. So all in all, pretty budget friendly. You can get away with making this guy pretty cheap. There's no leylays involved. I don't feel it needs it. There's like one sycamore. It runs perfectly fine. It runs up with my top tier decks, no problem. And yeah, it handles. So if you guys have anything you liked on it or didn't like on it, just let me know down at the bottom comments. If you guys want to like the video, that would be awesome. I wouldn't mind that. And let me know what you think. Thanks.